Listen to me. He knows everything about all of us. Our identities, where we live, who our families are, everything. We have to leave now. Today on the Comic Book Report, Irredeemable, Volume 1 by Mark Waid and Peter Krause. Stick around and check it out. Greetings all, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I thought I'd take a look at the first Boom Studios volume I ever read. Of course we're talking about Irredeemable today. I heard that there's a new complete collection coming out, so I thought it would be a great time to review the first 4 issues. Before we get to our review though, I just want to shout out our channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking for comic book collected editions, definitely check them out with my link in the description. You can even use my code, TheComicBookReport, at checkout to receive $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or the code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a great way to support our channel. Thank you for considering. Now let's get started with today's review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Mark Waid and illustrated by Peter Krause. The comics in this volume were published by Boom Studios beginning in 2009. The volume itself collects Irredeemable issues 1 through 4. And finally, this standard-sized trade paper collection comes in at 128 pages. At this time, I'd like to issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that trade paperback collection. One thing I should say about Irredeemable, there are a couple ways to collect it. There's bigger paperbacks. I think that they're trying to come out with a hardcover edition of this, but these are the smallest trade paperback options available. Like I said earlier, this contains the first 4 issues, and frankly, it's really strong for a volume 1. I know I've been fascinated with this title. So this is a standard size paperback. It has glossy print paper stock, which I always love to see, and it does have a glued binding, which I will show you momentarily. Here's the back cover as well. It's a little bit bland, but we do have the nice heat vision from Plutonian, our main character / main villain of the series. Really, really cool stuff. And now that we're done with the exteriors, I'll go ahead and take a look at that binding I mentioned earlier. So it is just a simple glued binding for this trade paperback. Nothing too crazy here. It's very standard what you can expect from trade paperback collections. I really didn't have any issues, not too much gutter loss or anything like that. Overall, a well-made little collection here. And now we can go ahead and start with the collection proper. This series really begins with a bang. I really enjoy it. Before I start talking about it in more detail though, I do want to just set up a basic synopsis for this series, at least the early series, so you can get an idea of what this is even about. At its core, if I had to distill this down to its simplest plot synopsis, I would say it is essentially a Superman gone bad story. We've seen this happen from a couple different publishers. Of course, with Superman, we have story arcs like Injustice, and there are so many more to choose from. That being said, this does feel like a really novel take on these tropes, and I really have to applaud Mark Waid for really having excellent execution for an otherwise, I don't want to say formulaic plot idea, but it is a familiar idea we've seen explored before, but I think that he adds so much to it, down to the characterization, the world building, and the art from Peter Krause is just stellar. I do think that this can be kind of a tired plot idea, but it is done so well that it is absolutely true that Waid elevates this kind of standard narrative frame. Right from the beginning, we start so swiftly with Plutonian basically coming to one of his former allies' homes and basically destroying his whole family. And we get to see this guy completely unhinged before flashing back and seeing kind of what happened. I think because this isn't Superman specifically, and because we're not in one of the big two publishers, we're over at Boom, this can be a bit more visceral or violent or intense than some of the big two companies often do, and I think that that really lets them explore this Superman gone wrong kind of narrative. Instead of Superman, we have his analog in the Plutonian, who is sort of Earth's mightiest hero, and he has a lot of the powers of Superman: flight, strength, heat vision, things like that. And he's gone bad, and he's gone very, very bad. And he wants to just kind of make the world his sandbox, completely subjugate anyone who's going against his will, and basically just go off the rails across the board. Part of the primary cast of characters outside of the Plutonian is, well, basically the remnants of his superhero team. This would be like if the Justice League kind of had to figure out what to do to stop Superman. It's the same idea here. We have all of these other heroes trying to stop him. They're even trying to link up with some of the old villains, kind of everyone, all hands on deck, trying to stop this before he destroys the world. And I think that that is a really fun approach to this. I like the idea that we also really follow his once friends as they scramble to figure out how to destroy this menace. And they're really outmatched by the Plutonian. He's unbelievably overpowered, and they find themselves basically becoming aware of the fact that they know almost nothing about him. They don't know his civilian identity. They don't know a ton of his relationships. They don't know if he has any weaknesses, where he comes from, where he goes. And so because of that, there's this grand mystery element. And we find our heroes in these first couple issues trying to hunt down leads, finding his old girlfriend, figuring out what his name was, his alter ego, trying to track down his arch villain to see what his weaknesses may be. There's all of these different subplot threads as they're just trying to find a headway on how to stop him. All the while, he's basically systematically hunting them down and taking over. So they have all these like kind of teleportation technologies and things like that, but they really are having a hard time outpacing the Plutonian. And we have a lot of great flashbacks. We're treated to a really cool sequence of flashbacks from his ex-girlfriend, who is just totally haunted, explaining kind of how she got together with him and what she knew about his alter ego, things like that. And we get to see kind of the rumblings of all was not good for a while until he finally snapped. And these were just really effective scenes. I was really blown away by this. At one point, we're actually introduced to his, well, for lack of a better word, sidekick character who has the ability to kind of keep coming back from the dead. At any rate, they try to vet him at a graveyard to get information about his time with Plutonian, again, to find weaknesses or things like that, any details that could be helpful. And we have him remembering all of these different things, but kind of struggling piecing together his own memories. And toward the end of that sequence, we actually see the back of his head has a scar in it, and we find out that the Plutonian actually lobotomized him with his own heat vision to keep him from basically leaking any secrets or anything that could potentially be used against him. A really, really dark and horrific sequence that again just shows the kind of depravity and just grotesque nature of our primary character here in the Plutonian. I think that this storyline, like I said, is absolutely elevated by Mark Waid's writing and just attention to detail, world-building characters, but I think that it's also definitely elevated by Peter Krause's incredible artwork. I don't even know how to describe it other than it is purely cinematic. It's absolutely jaw-droppingly beautiful. The character models are all very distinctive and lifelike, and I think that he just has a really good feel for set dressing that I felt like I was in every single one of these scenes, and I think that that is such a amazing attribute of a comic book artist when you feel like you have such a scope for the world they've built in these illustrations that you feel like you're right there in the action. And I think for a series as fast-paced and mysterious and interesting as Irredeemable starts as, this is just an essential element, and it absolutely kept me engaged to the storytelling. So absolutely well done, Peter Krause. Something surprising about this first volume is that, again, it's only 4 issues long, and yet within those 4 issues, I feel like we cover a tremendous amount of ground in a way that feels very fast-paced, but not rushed. And again, I don't know how Waid managed to navigate that. I feel like it's such a tightrope walk to have something so fast-paced, kinetic, action-packed, but not feeling like I'm rushing the narrative. Everything felt very well developed and earned, even across these first couple issues. It It was absolutely engaging. Just about every issue keeps me on kind of a cliffhanger, really just wowed by it. There were so many impeccable scenes, even in these first couple issues, that I liked. There's a scene where the plutonian basically crashes into a UN meeting that's discussing what to do with him. Some people want him destroyed, and he just basically kills them on the spot. We have others who basically want to promote him as kind of the central figurehead of their whole nations, and we have everyone kind of begging and pleading for them to have Plutonian on their side or to spare them, and it's just a really wild sequence to see all these different world leaders and representatives kind of groveling before this guy. We also have him trying to take out parts of a country, basically creating kind of a natural disaster that he orchestrates. We even have him throwing basically little meteors from space. It's just absolutely brutal. And we have this sequence where one of his old allies says, please, like, we have to, like, let us save these people. You don't want to just murder all these innocent people. And he basically says, out of a whole country that's about to get wiped away, he basically says, pick 10. And then the guy has the agonizing effort of picking 10 random people to save their lives, and then he decides to destroy them anyway. Again, he's almost evil for evil's sake. It feels like a pure evil kind of character, and yet I have the feeling that there's nuance here. I feel like everything here has to be motivated, and even in the first few issues, we have an inkling of kind of some of the things that caused this shift in this character, and really just coming to grips on who this character is. I definitely look forward to see how that's further explored throughout the rest of this run. I think this whole series is something like 30 or 40 issues. It's not a terribly long series. There is kind of a companion series as well with Incorruptible that kind of has the inverse of this. It takes place during the Irredeemable storyline, and it's about a villain who kind of tries to become a hero. So I think that this is a really fun kind of shared universe that Mark Waid created here at Boom Studios. At any rate, it's a lot of fun. I haven't finished this series completely, but as far as this first volume goes, I was absolutely stunned. I think it's a really fun time. It is not perfect, and I do think that as much as these creators elevate this kind of tired plotline, it does still feel a little tired. And it's hard for me to remove myself from the fact that this came out in 2009, so I know that this trope has been explored much since then. So this might have felt even more fresh at the time of the writing. It's really hard for me to speculate on that, again, reading it so much after the fact. I definitely feel confident to say that it's a very exciting Volume 1. After the 4 issues, we do have a handful of extras, including some cover art, which is always exciting to see. We have a couple production images. We have some sort of advertising for other titles within the kind of Boom Studios banner. Overall, though, a pretty solid trade paperback. Like I said, for a 4-issue little book here, it really does feel quite a bit denser than what you'd expect. And with that, we've really reached the end of our trade paperback today, and all that's left is to give Irredeemable Volume 1 a grade. For a fun Superman Gone Bad kind of story from a publisher outside of the big two, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Irredeemable Volume 1 by Mark Waid and Peter Krause a B. This was definitely an above average read for me. I love the art throughout, and I think it was a very solid setup for the series. There are definitely some memorable characters and ideas here, even if the plotline feels a bit used. This is a series already I feel like I could definitely recommend for those who like the superhero genre, but like it to be a little bit more than what they usually see from the big two publishers over at Marvel and DC Comics. I think especially for a Mark Waid fan like myself as well, this is a must-read series that I think should definitely be talked about. Let me know if you've read Irredeemable or Incorruptible. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I'd be really curious to see what the rest of these series feel like, and I always enjoy hearing from all of you. Thank you so much, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like and maybe check out some of my other videos. And until next time, have a good one.